Welcome to another Airbrush Asylum video. This is the water-based real fire versus urethane real fire. Now this is a sample panel that I've completed for a customer. I'm doing a hot rod for later on this year. So the base color is this purple candy by DNA, and on the left hand side I've done some water-based flames using Trident airbrush paints, and on the right I've done urethane flames using House of Kolor paints. So let's get into the comparison now. So this is the panel with some clear over it just to protect that underlying candy. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to prep the panel ready for airbrushing. I'm going to take you right through the steps to create both of these flames. And this tutorial is going to be split up into two parts. So what I've done is just sprayed some water over the panel, and using some 800 wet and dry sandpaper, I just want to scuff the clear. So I'm just sanding that clear to scuff it up and give it some tooth for the paint to stick on. Now you can see I'm using the palm of my hand, I'm not using my fingertips, so never sand with your fingertips. If you need to, you can also use a block. A block will just make sure that you get a nice even sanding pattern. So once I've done that, I'm wiping off some of the water and the excess sanding dust with a paper towel. Just checking it and putting a little bit more water on, and I'm just continuing to sand a bit more. So I've missed a couple of those areas, so you want to completely dull the panel. And you'll notice that the sanding dust that you can see mixed in with that water is like a white color. Now you want to make sure it remains like that. You don't want to see any purple. That means you've gone too deep and you need to stop immediately. Alright, so nice and light is perfect. You can see some of those marks in there where when the painter painted this particular panel, there was some bits of dust stuck in there, so they've now been knocked out a little bit. But again, this is just a sample panel. This panel didn't get fully flow coated, so the image you saw earlier was just a couple of coats of clear over my airbrushing. Obviously with a hot rod it would be done completely different. It would be fully flow coated, like wet sanded numerous times, so it's going to be a mirror finish at the end. So you'll notice I also used a grey Scotch-Brite just to scuff it up a little bit more, and back with my 800 wet and dry just to finish it off and clean it off with a paper towel. And now I'm going to use some KC10 House of Kolor wax and grease remover. I'm just going to remove any of that sanding dust, and that'll give me a nice base, clean base to begin my airbrushing. A quick shot here shows you what it should look like before I start, so you can see it's nicely dulled off. So now with some masking tape I'm going to split the panel in two sections. So the left side will be my water-based real fire, so I'm going to create this using Trident airbrush paints, no candies. And the right hand side I'll be using House of Kolor paints, and I'll be utilizing candies. So starting off with red, so Trident airbrush paint, I'm just going to loosely map in the flow of the fire. So this is essentially going to be the background layer. So usually I would do flames like this on a dark background, say a black or any other dark color. Obviously with this purple candy it poses a bit more of a challenge. With the black you can come back in and sort of clean up some of the areas or eliminate flames that you don't like. When you're working on top of a candy you need to be a bit more accurate with the fire, because you can't just come in and eliminate something that you're not happy with. So this tutorial will be predominantly done in real time, so I want you to really understand how these flame layers were completed and how the end result is achieved. So you can see I'm utilizing a freehand template, and throughout this tutorial series I'll be using my 4 template set, the Fire Tool template set. So I designed these 4 templates just to make it easier to create this real fire and the style of fire that I do. and AirShot stencils have manufactured them for me. So they handle all shipping worldwide, and we handle sales in Australia. So there'll be some links in the description below if you want to go check out those templates, as well as some airbrush links to products that I'm using. So I'm trying not to be too sharp at this stage. So the red's just going straight on the panel and only hitting certain edges with that template. So you don't want it to be too sharp. You want to have it sort of loose to tight, so the background can be a bit softer, and then gradually as you work towards the foreground of the fire, those flames will be sharper. So I call these flames real fire flames. Obviously they're not intended to be photorealistic style flames. This is an automotive style representation that I airbrush quite frequently on Harleys and hot rods and cars and bits and pieces. And I'm sure you've seen many of my other videos. I do want to give a special shout out to the innovator of these flames and someone who really brought it to market, Mr. Mike LaValle. Unfortunately, he at the time of this video, he passed away about 2 weeks ago. He was a friend and a big inspiration to me. So I have actually got another project that I've been working on, which I will release on this channel. That's going to be a piece that will be auctioned off to help his family. So definitely look out for that on here once that's released. So I'm doing the same sort of thing as what I did with the Trident Red, but now I'm using House of Kolor. You can see I'm constantly spinning those templates around just to vary the edges so that I can use different parts for different sections of the fire. My style of fire is a little bit more wispy, so other people like to go a bit heavier and fuller, so each to their own. You know, don't try and adjust the style of fire. Just follow these steps. That'll help you to learn how to correctly render them. But again, it's totally up to you and how you want it to look at the end. You know, you can by all means add more red or more orange. You know, you can add less yellow. It just totally depends on what sort of end result you want. So definitely play around with it. And just let your style shine through. As long as the flames have a nice flow to them, that's pretty much the hardest thing to replicate and to get right. I find that when I show students how to do this method in my classes, that's the most difficult part, is for them to really understand how to get that flow. So now working on the water-based side, I'm going to start my second layer. So this is now a light orange. So this is white mixed with orange, obviously with some reducer, Trident Airbrush paint. And I'm just working over the top now. I'm kind of ignoring the first layer. So this is now the second layer, which will begin to build the foreground. Right, so the red was our background. Now we're starting to work towards the front. So you're looking through the flames. That's the idea of this. Again, utilizing my template, but not relying on it 100%. You don't want too many sort of really sharp defined edges. I kind of like to do a little bit freehand and then use the template on just the edges to pick them off and get that sort of real defined sharp edge. And I'll also like to, as you can see here, fog in down towards the lower part of the flame, so the source of the fire, and I like to make that a bit heavier. By making it heavier, obviously that will allow other tones to sit on top of it, and it'll give you sort of that starting point of where the flames are coming from. So I do hope that you're enjoying this video so far. If you are, by all means give it the thumbs up, share it out, and let's build this airbrushing community together. If this is the first time watching one of my videos, then welcome. For all of our regular viewers, welcome back. Consider subscribing. I do weekly tutorials, so if you like this sort of content, I'm sure you'll get loads out of it. And make sure you hit that bell icon, and that will notify you every time I put out a new video, so you don't miss out on any new uploads. So don't be alarmed if it starts looking a bit messy. You can see here it's not looking like much at this stage, but as you saw from the initial panel that I showed you at the start of this video, which was the completed version of what you're looking at now, it does come to life, especially once you put that clear on it. But yeah, don't be alarmed. This is normal that the flames kind of look a bit messy and weird at this stage. So now switching to the urethane side, and I'm using Molly Orange. This is actually a colour by House of Kolor and developed by Mike Lavalley for them in about, I think it was 04 or 05 when this whole fire thing really took off. And just using that in the same fashion as what I just completed with the Trident, the light orange. So essentially the light orange Trident is my kind of version of the Molly Orange, but you can definitely notice the difference between the two. But I'm doing the same sort of methods. Again, just coming in, using my freehand template to sketch and just building my fire as I go along. And now in order to tint the water-based side, just to give it a bit of the candy appearance, I've made up a transparent orange. So this is transparent base mixed with reducer and orange added to that. So by using transparent base, you effectively are creating what is a similarity to a candy in a urethane, but it just won't have the same sort of punch or effect as the urethanes would. The one benefit is that the transparent colours won't fade out, whereas the candies over time, they definitely can fade. So keep that in mind. especially if you're going to do something like this on the bonnet of a car that you're going to be driving every day. When I say bonnet, I mean hood, for all of those people overseas who don't know what I'm talking about. But keep that in mind because it definitely can fade over time. So I'm also making sure that I'm spraying just where I want that transparent orange to be over those that layer of fire that I just completed. So especially on this particular background where I've got the purple underneath. If this was a black background, it wouldn't be as crucial because the transparent orange wouldn't really tint over the top of the black. So this is where it gets a little bit trickier when you are doing this real fire technique over candy colours or any sort of light colour for that matter. Okay, so now I'm going to add a Tangerine Candy by House of Kolor over the top of my Molly Orange. This isn't going to change it that much, it's just going to give the orange a nice punch. So that's what the beauty of the candy is, it's a real intense colour. So when it goes over the top of any base colour, it really just makes it pop. Okay, so now that I've completed that, I'm going to use a blue tack rag and I'm just going to get off some of that overspray from the candy before I seal it with some SG100 Intercoat Clear. Sorry about the extraction fan noise, but for this particular project it did get quite fumey obviously in the studio, so I have it going from time to time, so I hope that doesn't detract too much from getting lots of value out of this video. So I'm just using my Iwatari clips, my HPCS with a 0.35mm needle nozzle setup to apply my SG100 Intercoat Clear. You can use any sort of Intercoat Clear, it doesn't have to be House of Kolor, but I prefer to stick with the brand that I'm using. i.e. I'm using their, obviously their paints and candies, so I want to seal it off with the correct Intercoat Clear. That said, for the record, the base colour, the purple candy that you saw at the start, and you can see sort of modelled in the background now that it's been wet sanded, is not House of Kolor. It is actually by DNA Custom Paints. And this colour was selected by the customer, so hence why I'm doing these flames and these tests on this particular sample panel. You'll most likely see more samples coming out for this particular project. So now on to light orange again, and I'm going to further detail the next layer of fire. This time I'm going to go a little bit sharper, and what I'm doing is I am actually working within this the previous layer this time, so I'm not just ignoring it, I'm just further accentuating some of those flames. Again, just really trying to visualize the flow of the fire and how it would act. If you struggle to do this from the top of your head, by all means get yourself a reference image. So I'm sure you can just punch into Google fire images, even high res or wallpaper I find works really well because they're usually a real high res image, and then you'll have a good sort of basis to start with. You don't have to necessarily copy it 100%. It's not about getting a photorealistic flame. I think that's where a lot of people get mixed up. This is not photorealistic fire. It's not intended to be. It's a stylized fire. Okay, so it's something that you can use for Harleys, cars, automotive applications. You can do it on canvas if you want, but you know, you can also bring in other artworks within the fire. You can have skulls burning within the fire, you know, dragons, demons, whatever that may be. So that's what it's intended for. We are not trying to replicate something 100% accurately. Now working back on the urethane side, I'm going to switch back to my Molly Orange and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to build another layer of fire. So you can see they're similar steps, and that's why I wanted to do this comparison video, just to show you what it looks like between each step of the process. A lot of people think that you can't do flames using water-based paints, but this video definitely shows you can. However, it will give you a different end result. Whether you like one better than the other, well, that's up to you to decide. There is also companies now that have brought out water-based equivalents in candies. So I know Createx have a candy range. I do have a video where I did use their product, so that's also fun to do. But as far as so far what I've tested with the water-based candies, you cannot beat a urethane candy. It just doesn't compare. And now back on the water-based side, I'm using transparent orange, and I'm just tinting back over that layer that I've just completed. Okay, now switching back to the tangerine candy, I'm just going to dust back over my molly orange that I just completed. Now after that tack rag, just applying another coat of SG100, the Intercoat Clear. So the reason I'm doing this is to protect each layer so that it doesn't bleed through at the end. So look, people have said that you don't need to do this step, but in my attempts at doing real fire, if I hadn't sealed them off, I've had it where it's bled right through. So basically all of the flames, once all the layers were completed, just turned orange because that underlying candy colour seeped right through to the top coat. So by using the Intercoat Clear, I find that seals it off, and then I don't have to worry about it when it gets 2-pack cleared. And this is where we're going to leave part 1. Be sure to check out part 2 and take a look at some of the other videos and playlists that I've got listed here. Until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.